What's the biggest display of wealth you have ever seen? I have a friend who was employed by a very famous old pop star. She lived on site to his mansion, which itself was a very cute cottage, and was paid more than I am with no rent or bills for said cottage. Her job? To open the curtains of his bedroom in the mornings, put on classical music and gently wake him up for the day. That sounds sexual. It wasn't sexual, more like, hey big star, I know you're still sleepy but it's time to get up, etc. I worked at a university. Every day a sorority girl would park her BMW illegally in the corner on the first floor and get an expensive ticket, and she just paid them off. Overheard something similar from a rich dude in my country. Since towing services isn't a thing on the same scale as in the US, he didn't see it as a ticket or fee. That was just the price it cost to park his Porsche in that spot, nothing else. A breakfast place I went to a lot in my hometown. I went to pay for my meal and the waitress was like, "Don't worry, it is covered." Next day, I went back. Once again, my meal was covered. Repeat for the rest of a week and I was baffled. Apparently some rich dude liked his breakfast a week ago and bought all orders for the following week and tipped all the staff $10,000 to keep it a secret and cover loss of tips for the week. It was a small mom and pop shop, but that still has to have cost him $100K or something. For a meal. There was intentionally no hype and the other regulars and I were never told who it was. I am a custom metal worker. We did the penthouse at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, off of Central Park. Owner lived there. The floors were made of titanium plate. The wife had her own massive library, and we had to make a rolling staircase that an old woman could move. We did, probably cost $80,000. We delivered it, and she said, "It's too steep, can you make another?" $80,000 later she's happy and my buddy has a rolling staircase at his workshop. Dude just kept grabbing stuff and having me ring it up. At first I was like, "You sure?" Then it eventually clicked, this guy was on a shopping spree. The shop had no human necessities. I don't remember the total by the end but it was close to 5 figures USD. Pulled out his black MX that weighs like a pound and boom, mile-long receipt. One of the few days I wished I made commissions. Guy I worked with long ago paid cash for a new Mercedes, as in a briefcase full of 20s. They made him wait until the armored truck pulled up. He did it for the reaction. This was before KYC. Company owner got a divorce, went on a shopping spree and showed a receipt for tens of thousands of dollars to our receptionist as a way of showing off. What he spent was 80% of what she makes in a year. She was really uncomfortable and brought it to me as the HR person. My boss, who owns his own plane, likes to do shit like that with keys to his cars. Like flick them round up close to the camera on a call to show off the logo. I think it really bugs him that I don't. Ooh and ah. Because I don't care about fancy cars. What does piss me off is that there's an item I brought after much saving, and it means a lot to me. He heard about it, and just went and brought 2 so he could comment about it. When I worked at Blue, Justin Bieber spent a stupid amount of money just to ski. He tried to rent the whole resort to make it private, but they wouldn't let him, which I still think is hilarious. This area also has dozens of houses that are all valued well over $10 million that all sit empty. They're just buildings that billionaires bought on a whim. I swear this isn't a lie, it's just outrageous. There is a town near me that's famous because it's built around a lake, and everyone there is filthy rich. Like all the homes are in the millions. I used to clean there as a teen for money. There was a super fancy gas station my mom and I used to stop at for water. When I was 16, just before Christmas, a woman walked up to me in this gas station and said, "Oh, you're a cleaner." I was in uniform. "You are around my son's size, we got him stuff for Christmas, but he decided to go to Tokyo. Would you like to come over to talk about us hiring you and you can have his gifts, we are just gonna send him money." Of course I gracefully accepted and we went to their house. They hired us and sent me off with a car full of gifts. In the conversation they said they are gonna send him $20K. 20K. And all those gifts easily cost around 5 to 6K at the least. And they just gave them to me. It was literally like hitting the lotto. And they gave them to me because otherwise we are just gonna throw them in the basement. I work at a zip line in Hawaii. One time we had a couple people come in. One of them was a Saudi prince. Anytime someone helped, or even talked to him, he had his assistant count out $100 bills and give it to them. He tipped his guides $3,000 apiece. Was wild. My husband was invited to a destination wedding in the Caribbean. We had to buy our flights and the rest of the trip was completely paid for. A private resort was shut down for the long weekend, so only the wedding guests were in attendance. The airport had our names when we landed and we bypassed customs. It was truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Bride's family is from old European royalty. Worked at a suit store last year. Guy comes in looking kinda scrubby, but there are no customers in the store, so I go help him. Find some stuff he thinks is cool, but ends up saying he wanted to check another place. No problem, happens all the time. Comes back about an hour later and says that no one at other store paid any attention to him, he says because he looked poor. He then proceeds to tell me he liked how I treated him with respect and proceeded to buy a full wardrobe from me. We're talking 10 plus custom suits at 1K plus each, 30 plus dress shirts, 30 plus ties, casual shirts, shorts, pants, shoes, the whole deal. Ended up ringing everything up and it was around 20K. I made 10% commission on everything, and that was the most money I as a broke college student ever gotten in a single paycheck. Had an amazing side gig instructing tech nerds how to drive their fancy cars at the racetrack. It's called a HPD, High Performance Driving Event. A rich tech nerd shows up with a new McLaren 12C, delivered in a McLaren trailer and staffed by an entire crew of McLaren techs and engineers. Why? Driver was complaining about how the $12,000 brakes would burn up after just one day at the track and escalated enough for McLaren to wonder if something was terribly wrong with the car. After one session, he huddled around a laptop with the engineers and found what was wrong. He was just that terrible of a driver. I had a friend in middle school whose parents paid for her and 3 of her friends, me included in that group, to go to Disneyland and stay at the Disneyland Hotel. At one point during the trip I cried in a corner of a store because my mom could only give me $20 to spend and everyone else bought whatever they wanted the entire trip. I didn't know how insane it was for the parents to pay for all of our tickets and rooms until I was older. My boss had to impromptu get a new license to travel. When he was at the DMV, they said he had to pay like $100,000 in back parking tickets. He just set a card down and paid it. Apparently he couldn't get a parking permit to be able to park in front of his house for some stupid reason, so he just parked there anyway, and just accepted that they were ticketing him like $100 per day for years. A friend's dad owns one of those Fortune 500 companies. Dudes never had to think about money. I remember when we were in college he drove his $200,000 car to meet us at a party, got drunk, had his dad's driver come pick us all up, and left the car at the frat house. Like just forgot about it, didn't even think to go pick it up again. We thought he'd had someone pick it up, and 2 months later he was notified that it had been towed, and he had to pay to get it back, and his response was, "I bought another one last week anyway." Shit's wild for some. I work out in the Hamptons. All of my clients are ultra-wealthy people with large, expensive vacation homes. Most of these properties are only used a few times a year. Primarily weekends in the summer. After that, the homes sit unoccupied 90% of the time. Most of these clients spend more on landscaping annually than I make in a year. My biggest customer spends over $100,000 a month on landscaping services. Rich cousin who works in Hollywood. Love him to death and he is very generous, but he lives in a different world. Went out to dinner with him at a fancy-ish restaurant. Anytime someone said something looked good, he would pretty much order it. Glass full of expensive wine spilled, immediately ordered a replacement. Obviously, he was just being a good host, and I won't fault him for that. But I left that dinner going, "Yep, he lives in a different world than I do." Was working at a lesser-used airport one time and a 737-passenger airplane comes in and parks. The ground crew puts some luggage onto it. Person with a dog gets on the plane, then comes off the plane without the dog. Plane takes off. This rich family sent their private 737 airplane to pick up the dog. College roommate of mine used to treat clothes, bed linens and appliances as disposable. We just get a new €50 deep fryer when the old one would need to be cleaned, for example. I once managed a press conference early in the morning for a very successful singer. He flew in on his plane, got into his golf cart, and drove into the hangar where he did his conference. He was so pleased how it went that he wanted to take me out to eat. I, of course, said yes, thinking we would grab something close to the airport. Oh no, he wanted to fly me to Italy for lunch on his private jet. Sadly, I did not have my passport with me and needed to pick my son up from school later that afternoon, so we sat on his plane while he made cappuccinos for us. Still regret not saying yes, but to have that much freedom in life, to me that is true wealth.